welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. This week's question comes from esteemed colleague Ava, who wrote in via askanassistant.com with the following question. She says, "Dear Jess, I am in desperate need of a vacation, but taking time off feels impossible. Taking time off feels like some kind of betrayal to the company, and my to-do list never seems to reach completion. Help." Dear Ava, first of all, thank you so much for writing in with this question. And second, I am so sorry that this is where you find yourself. So many of us are conditioned or flat out told that taking time off isn't an option. It really sounds like your company has a culture of early mornings, long nights, maybe even a few hours of answering emails over the weekend. I've been there before, no picnic. I'm also guessing that you might be doing the work of anywhere from like 2 to 10 people, depending on the size of your organization, the size of your department, the number of executives that you might be supporting. And it feels impossible to take time off because there is so much to do. But getting back to the matter at hand, I would like to talk about how to take time off as an executive assistant. At a high level, those steps might look like choosing the dates that you want to take off, book your time off and get it approved, manage expectations ahead of time, think about what you can hand off or automate in your absence. Also think about what things that you will accept a vacation interruption for. Like, what are those things? Learn to trust that things are going to be okay when you're not there, and take the time off, be present, and enjoy it. I have been noticing a theme in both this podcast and in my life that everything is a practice, and taking time off is no exception. You're going to start off with choosing the dates that you want to take off. Just come to and accept the belief that there will always be more work. Unless your company is seasonally busy, like accounting, for example, in the United States is totally slammed like January 31st through April 15th. A lot of accounting firms don't allow people to take time off, with the exception of illness, personal emergencies, that kind of thing. But like no vacations can be scheduled February, March, and half of April. Try prioritizing time when it works for you. Do. Prioritize taking time off when it works for you instead of when it works for the company, unless you do have that seasonal necessity to be at work. Touched on this a moment ago, caveat, there will always be days that you need off or to work remotely due to unexpected circumstances like illness, accident, whatever other kind of emergency, kids, appliances, pets, life. You need time off. You both deserve and need time off. You need mental health days, sick days for you, your family, your pets. You might have service people and deliveries like plumber, cable, appliances, what have you, things where you have to be there to sign or maybe even project manage. Sometimes you just need a couple of days to watch The Price is Right and catch up on your month of DVR'd episodes of The Young and the Restless. I'm not going to judge. But by and large, for me personally, I find that it is easiest to line up my days off with the times that my executive is out of office. Now, this is by and large, mind you. I was earlier this year, not that long ago. It wasn't even really earlier this year. But I got sick with pneumonia the same week that my executive was out of town, and I had planned to be off that week anyway. And what a bummer of a week to have, just plans to do projects and be around the home and to just instead spend that time being sick. So yeah, by and large, for me personally, the executive that I presently work with, the organization that I am presently working at, it is easier for me to, by and large, take time off when my executive is off. A lot of executive assistants are busier when their executives are out of office. You're managing expectations for external and internal folks. You're putting out fires while they're gone. Your mileage will vary. So again, try to prioritize taking time off when it works best for you. Book your time off and get it approved. Use whatever the company's PTO system process is. Get it in writing. The number of corporate horror stories I've seen where, oh, Jim told me I could take this off, and then I went ahead and booked my non-refundable vacation, and now Jim is saying that someone else needs the time off, so they're not letting me take my vacation anymore. Get it into the system. Get it in writing. Get it confirmed. Make sure that your bases are covered. Also, if you are changing jobs and you have a vacation planned, mention it probably not during the interview process, but mention it when you're being hired. Like, hey, I have a non-refundable trip to Estonia or what have you booked. Like, you are going places, it's non-negotiable, but making sure that people are aware of it, whether it's people on your present team, your executive, whether it's people internally, externally, whether it's, like I said, you're changing jobs and you need to let people know, make sure that folks are aware. Definitely practice phrasing your PTO as a directive. I will be out of office these days, as opposed to a request. I would like to be out of office these days. You certainly need to be polite, but firm. And the more that you can, we've talked a lot about the importance of language on this podcast. I'm going to be out of office these days. It doesn't matter. It's not the company's business what you are or are not doing with that time off. It is a benefit that you have as a person who works at the company, and you're going to take the time off. PTO, whether it is accrued or unlimited, you're allowed to use it. It's a benefit that your company has decided to give to every member of the company in whatever amounts that they might give. Advocate for yourself and take the time off that you want and need. This one kind of piggybacks on getting your time off booked into the system and approved, but manage expectations ahead of time. If you know that there's a window where you're going to be out of office, especially if it is a longer time, like a holiday break, international travel, maybe even parental leave, what have you, start dropping that into conversations with internal and external parties. Like, hey, Jane, I'd like to get this settled by June 15th, as I will be out of office beginning on July 1st, and I won't return until whatever date that is, at least 2 business days later than you actually return, because you do need to build yourself a little bit of a buffer. If you tell Jane that you're going to be back July 15th, guess who's going to come knocking on your door July 15th? Tell Jane it'll be at least the 17th, if not the 18th. Jane doesn't need to know. They just need to know that you're going to be gone. And if you get back to them earlier than what you had promised, that's a bonus, but giving yourself that buffer is so important. Leading up to taking your time off, like when you're taking new projects or tasks with your executive or your team, set expectations in terms of, does this need to happen before I'm out of office, or can it wait? Or can someone else take this project on if it's going to be happening smack dab in the middle of when I'm going to be out? I am not a big fan of AI, as I have spoken about a bit on this show, and I definitely plan to again in the future, because all I see all over the internet all day is how people wrote their blog posts and made their graphics with AI. But like, there are some automations that you can set up. But there are also certainly things that you can hand off. And on top of that, things that you can schedule now to happen, even while you're out of town. Set up your out of office message, create documentation with your credentials, with steps outlining how to do whatever the task is. Also include quirks about whatever the task or project or software is, and train your stand-in before your time off. Like, there is nothing worse than somebody giving you crystal clear instructions, but not saying that, oh, hey, by the way, when you get to step 14, you might encounter this weird thing. And then this weird thing happens when you are gone and it wasn't mentioned. Like, be detailed, and definitely take the time to train your stand-in before you take time off if you can. Prioritize any time-sensitive items that cannot be scheduled in advance. This is actually something that has improved vastly in the last 20 years of my career. Like, this is another area where your mileage is going to vary, but things like, let's say, like tax payments. I had to pay quarterly estimates last year because it was me and my husband's first year filing joint married. I think those were the 2024 taxes. No, 2023 taxes. I had to pay at some point in the last couple of years, I had to pay New York State quarterly estimates, and you can actually sit and schedule 15 years worth of quarterly estimates if you want to. I don't know if it's actually 15, but you can at least schedule the entire tax year worth of estimates in one fell swoop. You don't have to be sitting there. Like, I remember my first executive assistant job, and I had to write and post date checks. So like, January 15th or whatever, I would take my executive's checkbook and write out, here is the June 15th, July, August, September 15th, whatever the quarterly dates were. I would have to take those checks, post date them, clip them, like print out the tax form, paper clip them together, set reminders in my calendar to then get the checks signed, because my executive, I think the online portal was available then. This would have been back in Minnesota in the early to mid 2000s. And my executive didn't trust the online payment and didn't want to send quarterly payments, even though they were not that expensive. Like, it was only a few $100s, but he just did not want to, which fine, whatever. But that meant that I had a year's worth of quarterly estimate payments sitting in a locked filing cabinet at my desk. And again, this big involved system of getting the check, printing the form, setting the calendar reminder, getting my executive to sign it. They would always wait until the very last moment. And I would literally be rushing off to the downtown Minneapolis post office. Like, this is just making me tired even thinking about it. But like, going to the post office downtown 15 minutes before it closes, making the company driver take me, because this was pre-Uber and Lyft, and like standing in line and making sure that the tax envelope was, they would hand cancel the stamp for me to show that it was postmarked on the date, so that even though we were sending it June 15th, it wasn't late. Like, my God, things have really improved since then. And the security of these systems has gotten better. And you can literally, it's at least a year worth of tax payments, if not longer. Like, that's all stuff that you can set up before you go. It's so great. Depending on your industry, there is definitely going to be stuff that still has to be done by hand, by a person on a specific date at a specific time. But there's so much that you can schedule ahead, especially when you know that there's time that you're going to be out of the office. I mean, just cover your own bases and give your mind a break. Like, when I go on vacation, I always worry that I forgot something. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but like, just taking anything off your plate that you can, and anything off your person who might be covering for you while you're gone, is just a huge load off of your own mind. I have definitely trained myself and others around me that most things can and will and do wait for you to return to the office. Like, I'm also super fortunate that my executive really respects my time off. He will lightly monitor the inbox when I'm out of office. He might read some stuff. He might answer some stuff, might acknowledge receipt and let them know that I'll get back to them whenever it is I'm expected to be back in the office. But yeah, by and large, it's really wonderful just having the confidence to know that things will wait. It's okay. Really sit down and think about what you will accept an interruption of your vacation for. Work with your executive, work with your team to establish a rubric that works for you and your executive and or your team. Maybe you're going to say, if something is a green, yellow, red, if things are green, they can wait until you get back. If it's yellow, it's kind of questionable. Maybe you might accept an interruption for that. Maybe you wouldn't. If it's red, if it's like do or die time, a rubric like that might be something simple that's easy to remember, but also easy to implement and practice. You could do something like a 1 through 10. I don't know if any of you watched Schitt's Creek, but I remember them saying, I think it was Moira at one point was a 7, like a 7 out of 10. And one of the other characters is like, well, at least it's not a 9. And it's like, yeah, just knowing that there is a scale of 1 through 10. Like, is this a 1? This can wait. Is it a 5? Maybe. Is it a 7 or an 8? Should I ask Jess to come back from her vacation for this? If it's like a 10, that's pretty similar to your green, yellow, red rubric. Whatever framing it is that you need for you, your team, your executive, there's no wrong answers here, but just making sure that you set and define and implement and use the scale and be consistent. It goes both ways. It's not just something for when you are out of the office. It's also something for when your executive is out of the office. Like, what will your executive accept an interruption for when they're out of the office? Like, very early on working with my executive, he continues to this day to be an advisor to Pencils of Promise, and he got to go to Africa. I cannot remember off the top of my head if it was 1 week or 2, but he was basically off the grid in Africa for at least a solid week. And I couldn't get a hold of him, like it just wasn't even an option. So that was really an interesting time, especially since I was so new in my role, to be in a position where I just literally couldn't get a hold of him. But now, things have improved. He's not spending time out in the middle of nowhere with no reception or ability to be gotten in touch with. But I definitely treat it as such when he's out. There are very few things, unless something is super time sensitive, super relevant to what he's doing. Like last week, he was at a conference. Some news came through about the conference. I made sure, like, hey, this is relevant to what you're doing right now. You need this information. But everything else can, will, and did wait until he came back. Also think about how often you're going to be checking in. Like, whatever that might be, if it's 15 minutes in the morning, set a strict 15-minute timer, set a 10-minute timer so that you have 5 minutes left. And then when 15 minutes gets hit, turn it off, get out of there. Also, have notifications snoozed or turned off when it's not time to be checking in at the office. Make sure you discuss with your family, your friends, whoever it is that you might be on a vacation with, and especially with yourself. Like, what is acceptable from work to step away from your time out of the office to essentially be back in the office, or at least have your brain momentarily or all day or all the rest of your vacation in work mode. Like, hopefully very few things, because the final most important part of the practice is learning to trust that things will be okay when you're not there. They will, because they must. You're not there. Even when you are in the office, there are always going to be messes to clean up, problems to solve, questions to answer. Do what you can in advance. Do your best, just like you do every day. You're going to do your best in advance to take care of as much as you can. Leave documentation for the people that are stepping in your stead. And just know that when you come back, there are going to be messes to clean up, problems to solve, and questions to answer. That's just the nature of the job. And to, taking it a step further, like, be present in your vacation. Enjoy, fully unplug to the extent that you can, and learn from your time out of the office so you can be even further out of the office next time. So, wrapping things up, just kind of a little recap of everything I just talked about. You've chosen the dates that you want to take off. You've booked your time off and gotten it approved in writing. You've managed expectations with internal and external parties ahead of time. You have handed off, automated, pre-scheduled everything that you could. You've defined a rubric for what, when, and why you'll accept an interruption while you're out of the office, which hopefully adds up to trusting that things will be okay when you're not there, because they must. You're not there. Ava, I hope this helps point you toward taking and fully enjoying a break from the office. I would really love to hear back from you the next time that you write in via askanassistant.com. How much time did you take off? Where'd you go? Who did you go with? The who, what, when, where, why of it all. And for everybody else listening, I always love to hear from you. askanassistant.com. And until next week, as always, take care.